welcome back to the WorldViewer training series. This is video 3, how to build a GUI. For those of you who haven't already done so, you can download this composition to follow along with us by visiting the web stories section of our website, Elumenati.com. So the composition that you see us using here is actually the same one that we used while building in video 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a GUI to walk through this. So as a reminder, we have our main menu chapter, which is just going to be displaying the Earth. We have our geolocation chapter, which is going to be the geolocated panel bubbles, our picture-in-picture, and our image sequence, okay? And so what I am going to do is actually set this back. Don't mind what I'm doing. We were doing a little test at the end of the last training. Okay, so starting with main menu. Here, we want to make sure that our guests have an inviting, initial user interface so that they know exactly what they're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and brand this. But before we do that, I want to add the tracks for our user interface. So I'm going to right click and hit new track, and you'll see it came in. I'm going to go ahead and add 3 of these because I use 3 tracks when creating my guest user interface. And the reason that I use 3 tracks is I want text and buttons at the top, input in the middle, and I want backgrounds on the bottom. And I do that so that I don't run into any issues in the future with layering. So I'm going to click on track 0, come over here under track properties, and I am going to name this GUI underscore buttons. Or I'm sorry, this one would be GUI underscore background. Then the one right above that is going to be GUI inputs. And the top one is going to be our GUI underscore buttons and text. Okay. And this is just so I know where to put everything. You could do this in 1, 2, 3, 5 tracks, whatever makes the most sense for your structure. So what I'm going to start with in chapter main menu, okay, and we're going to go ahead and save now that we've added those new tracks. So I'm going to right click under GUI background and load new clip. It's going to be a GUI, right, because it's going in our GUI. So we choose that, and this is just going to be a touchscreen graphic, okay? You'll see it automatically loaded in Earth. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to name this GUI underscore BG for background, and 03, of course, referencing the video that we created this in, okay? Now, I'm going to come to File, and I am going to browse for a different image that I like to use, okay? And that is our, let's see here, our geodesic blurple background, which is what we tend to use with our Elumenati created content. So I'm going to go ahead and click open. You'll see it brings it in. Now I need to come down to GUI position, okay? And I could either move it around and use these to stretch it out. I could build a grid so that I could make it, just to the edge. I could do 20 by 10, right? Or I could do GUI values and actually use math to place this. Now, I tend to use math because I want everything to be symmetrical and even. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this particular background a scale of 1 to 1 with no offset. And essentially, as you can see, that just fills our entire user interface. Okay, so now we have our background in. However, it's a little boring, right? And I think we can make it better. And so what we're going to do is we are going to come into GUI buttons and text. And GUI buttons and text is where we kind of are going to house everything that is not used to communicate with the actual material and is not a background. So here we go. We're going to load new clip. It's going to be part of our GUI, so we choose GUI. And we are going to say this is going to be touch screen text, okay? And so here, I'm going to come here and I'm going to name GUI underscore txt. And that's how I know that it's a text file. And I'm going to name this header because this is going to become our header, okay? And I'm going to come to GUI properties and I'm going to type, I like to use all caps, so I'm going to type WorldViewer training series, okay? And now we've got that. I like to make things not absolute size. I like to do it relative to the height. And the reason I do that is so if somebody else uses this GUI and they have a different size monitor, it's going to scale with their monitor. Okay. So I'm going to build this as if I'm going to share it with the world. And I want to change the appearance of this box. All right. So the text color and the background alignment and wrapping are all located under this appearance section. You could also use a custom font by clicking custom font and it'll filter through your fonts. However, I would encourage you to just stick with the standard font for WorldViewer. And the reason being, if you share this with other users, or even you want to charge for the content on our web store, then you're going to want to make sure that it looks the same for you as it does for them. And so I would either, if you're going to do a custom font, make sure you include the font with that package. If you don't do that, then I would say just use the standard font. So how the coloring system works, okay? This is hex coloring. So these are using hex codes. So the first 6 digits is your color code, and the last 2 digits is your transparency, right? So FF would be 0 transparency. It's not transparency at all. So the opacity would be 100. And if you changed it to 00, like I'm going to do with the background, okay, oops, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if I change it to 00, that background is going to be fully transparent, okay? Because the scale goes from 0 to F, okay? So 9A, it goes 0 to 9, A through F, and 9A or 90 would be 50% transparency, okay? So here we are, I'm setting that as 0, but I'm actually going to make it AA. I'm going to make it about 50% transparent, and I'm going to come and change the color from being this white color to 00000, which is, of course, black, okay? But black font on a black background doesn't work, so we're going to change this to FFF, which is, of course, white. Oops. All right, which, of course, is white. You could also use an application like Paint or Photoshop to get your hex color, okay? So now we have that set. So what I want to do is I want to move this in, and we are going to make it scale 1 all the way across with no offset. So it's all the way over. Then we're going to make it 0.2, so it's going to be 20% of the touch screen, and it is going to be 0.8 from the bottom, okay, which is 80% up, which is exactly at the top, okay? And what I'm going to do with my text is I'm actually going to, instead of making it middle center, I am going to make it upper center, okay? And I'm going to make it a little smaller so the entire WorldViewer training series make it. And I'm eventually going to have some buttons over here, so I'm actually going to make it just even a little bit smaller. And in order to do that, I'm going to now probably make this 0.15, and I will make this 0.85, so it's at the right height. And the reason I'm doing these adjustments is I want to have a little bit of writing under here, okay? So, but I want to have a nice header. So I'm going to come back up to our GUI text properties. I'm going to make that text just a little bit larger, okay? And then I'm going to actually right click, and I'm going to say load a new clip. I'm going to choose GUI, and this is going to be touchscreen text. And I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to say TXT so that I know it's text. And I'm going to call this the sub header, okay? And this will change each chapter, Okay, so right here I'm going to put video 3. Okay, because this is the third video in the training series. I'm going to take away the absolute size. I'm going to change my text to being white. Actually, I'm going to try and go for more of a little bit of a, we'll go for gray, but I'm going to have to look it up because I don't know it off the top of my head. And the background we are going to make fully transparent, so it doesn't matter what color it is. And now we are going to move this, okay? And this is going to be a scale of 1, 0. And we are going to make this 0.05. Oops. And we are going to move this up to 0.85. 875, I'm sorry, which is where we had our other. So now I'm going to come to the text property and I'm going to make that text much larger, okay? Because I want the text to be the same height, okay? Because I made it so that it would be small enough there. Now I need the color gray, so I am going to come to a program that will allow me to search for colors. So one moment here. So I want like a nice light gray. Let's go right there. So now I'm copying our hex code and I'm going to put that in on the text. All right. So now our text is like a light gray here for our subheader. All right. We are going to add some additional things. So I'm going to load a new clip and I'm going to do GUI, and this is going to be a touchscreen graphic. We're going to call this GUI underscore image, so we know it's an image on the GUI, and it's going to be logo. Okay, and the file that we're going to use is going to be flat media stills logo white trans. Okay, so now you'll see it's not to the right scale. Okay, but if I come down to GUI positions, I can stretch this and get it back to scale. Okay, and what we want is we want this to be just a logo. Whoops. Just a logo here on the bottom of our user interface. Okay. So I'm just going to move this down here. And now if I were to make this full screen, you can see there's a little logo down here. All right. Actually, I think I'm going to replace that one. That one looks a little bit strange. So I'm going to replace that with this logo black transparent. Okay. And now you can see I need to do a little bit of adjusting to that. So we're going to make it just scale it a little bit better here. There we go. All right. So I'm not going to mess with that too much. I might add in some additional sub stuff here, but for the sake of making the video not go on forever and ever, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. So we're going to do one more thing, and we're going to load new clip, GUI, and it's going to be touchscreen text. And this is going to be our GUI underscore text underscore intro. And intro to me just means it's the text on the introduction screen. All right. And so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, welcome to the WorldViewer training series composition. To begin, please choose from an option below. Remember, the number at the end of a clip or chapter designates the video tutorial on how to implement. All right, so now we have kind of our description text. We're going to come down to the text color. I'm going to make it white. Okay. We are going to make the background, we are going to make transparent. All right. And then we're going to come to text properties and we are going to spread it out. All right. And we're going to move it up to the top of the screen. And we're going to come now to our text properties, get rid of that absolute size. And we're going to find the size that makes it fit best. All right, that is, I think 0.25 is about as good as we are going to get. So now we have our descriptive text on there. Now we want to start adding some buttons, which are going to get us to these 3 chapters. So what we're going to do is we are going to right click, load new clip, and we're going to choose, I'm going to choose GUI, okay? And we're going to say it is going to be a touchscreen button graphic. And now if you make your own buttons, you can create them and then just come in here. We're going to make it GUI underscore button. And this button is going to be for GeoPanos. Okay. And this button was created in video 3. And I apologize, I didn't add the 03 to these other clips up here. So I'm just going to quickly add those so we don't forget. All right, so coming down here, we are going to browse for a file. I happen to have buttons created. I have both our light purple and our orange buttons. And so in this composition, I'm going to stick with our light purple. And here it is. So now I can move this button wherever I need it to be. Okay. And we're going to have 3 buttons. So I like to do this mathematically, so I'm actually going to get rid of the globes, or the grids, my apologies. And now that that is gone, I want the buttons, all 3, to be in one spot, okay? Or on one row. So what I'm going to do is, you know what, actually let's do 2 on top and then 1 below it. So here we go. If we want 2, I'm going to divide the screen by 3, and then I'm going to use the spacing as the 3rd button. So I want the scale of this button to be 0.33. Okay, and I'm happy with the 0.2, but I'm probably going to go to a 0.15. Let's see what that looks like. That's perfect. Okay, so now that I have it 0.33. I'm just going to do the math of dividing 1 by 1, 2, 3. Actually, that'd be 0.33. So 0.33 divided by 3. So 1 second. So that's 0.11. So this offset should be 0.11. Okay. And then we are going to duplicate this button. All right. And now we have this one, it's underscore 01, but we're going to change this to saying PIP because it's going to go to the PIP chapter. And then we can get rid of that. That's added at the end. And we are going to offset this by 0.11 plus 0.11 plus 0.33, right? Because we need the button and both of the spacing. So that's 0.55. So now our buttons are evenly spaced on the screen, okay? I'm not in love with their vertical location because we still have 1 more button to add. And I'm thinking I want the 1 button on top. So what we're going to do is we are going to bring this down a little bit. Let's try 0.2. Maybe a little bit more, 0.185. All right, so 0.175 is our good number. So we're just going to grab the other one and we're going to make that 0.175 as well. All right. And now we are going to duplicate this button yet again. And we're going to come down here and we're going to change it to image sequence. And then we'll get rid of the one at the end. And this time we are going to kind of split the difference, right? So essentially 0.5. So what we need is 0.33 divided by 2 is 0.165. So we need 0.5 minus 0.165. 0.335. All right, so this button should be 0.335. And now we want it to go up maybe to 0.35. Let's see what that looks like. Nope, we need more. 0.45. Too much. Okay, so what we're going to want to do now is put our text on our buttons. And so what we're going to do is come in, and here we'll put, oops, I like caps, geolocated panel bubbles. All right. And we want to make sure that it's not absolute size. It's 0.5. That's good. For our next button, we are going to do image sequence. And our last one is going to be picture in picture. And again, we want to make sure that we are at 0.5. Well, you can set whatever it is, but relative sizes tend to work best simply because of scaling user interface windows. Okay? So now that we have those set, we need to make them actually launch those chapters. Okay? And how we do that is scripting. And scripting is done, that we're going to just talk about very basic scripting today. We'll have a different tutorial on in-depth scripting. However, you need scripting in order to build a GUI. And our developers actually built the ability to find the scripting right into the software for a majority of the basic functionality. So, for example, what we need here is, let's start with the geolocated panels button, okay? And it's GUI events. GUI events is what happens when you interact with that part of the GUI. And so what we're going to say is this should actually launch the geolocated panels chapter. So if you right click on the eyeball, so however you would interact with it controlling it from the back end is how you find the scripting. So to play this chapter, we would click that eyeball. So if I right click on it, it gives me the option to copy OSC, which is the scripting language that is used inside of WorldViewer. It gives you multiple options. Now, if you were going to use like an arrow that says next chapter, next chapter, next chapter, and it was going to always be the same in every chapter, okay, then you would use this chapter next. I like to be, unless I know it's going to do multiple things, I like to use the exact name of the chapter. And I think it's a good habit to get into, because if somebody accidentally reorders your chapters, then your chapter next buttons are going to be messed up because it goes to the next chapter. Okay, so I'm going to click on that one to copy it. And if I just click on this button and go to GUI events, on click, I can right click and I can say paste and replaced. And you can see it says play chapter geolocated panel bubbles. Okay, so I'm going to click save. And I'm going to come over to that button. All right, and I'm going to click. And there we go. It brought us to the geolocated panel bubbles. So our button worked. Okay. So now we're going to do the same thing for the next two buttons. So let's copy the picture-in-picture scripting and go to the picture-in-picture button and right-click, paste, and replace. Okay. If there was already scripting in there, it'll give you the option to append your script to it or to replace it. You could also click in it and use Control-V. Okay. So there's multiple ways that you can handle this. I like to use the built-in features with the right click. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the last chapter, which is image sequence. And we're going to copy the OSC. And now we're going to go to the image sequence button. And we are going to paste and replace. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this because we want to save often. So now, if we click these, we can get into each of those chapters. Okay, image sequence, there's that. Okay, and then we also have our picture in picture. Let's test that one. Beautiful. All right. So now that we have our main buttons done, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to come to geolocated, and we are going to first, we are going to copy over our header. So we're going to find our header, and we're just going to paste a link because the header is going to stay the exact same. But then we're going to grab the subheader, and this is going to say geolocated panels. So instead of the same thing, we're going to paste a clone. So now if we come into our clone, we see it's subheader 03 for this. So this was the main menu one. So I'm going to change this to being called geo panos underscore subheader. And I'm going to come back here and I'm going to rename this one to be called main menu subheader. Okay. So now we come in here. I'm going to get rid of that 01 so that people know that it was built in this chapter or this tutorial. And I'm going to come to the text properties and I'm going to change it from saying video 3 to saying geolocated panel bubbles. All right. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put on some on-screen text. Okay. And I want it to be white and just like this one. So I'm just going to grab this intro text. All right. And I'm going to paste a clone here. And I'm pasting a clone because I'm going to change the text. It's not going to be the same. So this is going to become, instead of intro text, it's going to be called geopano text. Okay. And it's going to say to view 360 videos, please click on one of the bubbles geolocated on Earth. Okay, so now that we have that text, I'm going to bring it just a little bit bigger to, there we go. And now I'm going to move that text down to the bottom of the screen. Okay, and that way people can see it. And to be honest, because of the background here, I think I might even come into the text properties and I might make it a black, so 00 0 0 0 0 0, and we're going to make it AA, which is about 50%. Okay, and that way people can see it just a little bit better. So now they know that they can spin this globe here, right? And they can click on one of the geolocated panel bubbles. Please spin the Earth and click on one of the panel bubbles. Okay, so we did adjust that just slightly to match a little bit more. Now you'll see the Earth is spinning in this chapter, and I don't want that to happen. I only want that to happen in the main chapter. So I'm going to come in on play the scripting for the chapter, which I get to by clicking on the chapter name, and I come down here. And I know this scripting, but you could look it up on the scripting document. So what I'm going to do is say main camera set RPM to 0. And I'm also going to say, because what if it's not, the lat long is all messed up because somebody was spinning it in the other chapter. I'm going to say main camera set lat goal to 0 and main camera set lon goal to 0. And the main camera is the Earth, this center sphere. Okay, so when I run that script, you can see it brings it back to 0. It stops the spinning. Okay, and it has a radius of 3. So I'm actually in this chapter going to change that radius to 2 so that the Earth gets bigger and easier for people to pick from. Okay, and which means we need to set the radius goal in the other chapters. Okay, to automatically bring that radius goal back down to 3. Okay, so that the Earth is normal sized in these other chapters. And so I'm just going to grab this little script, and I'm actually going to paste it in each one of the other chapters so that we don't forget. But also, we don't want the other chapters to spin. So we're going to grab this set RPM 0 and the lat lon, and we're going to paste that in these other two chapters as well. So I could right click and hit paste and append, and it adds it to the end. Okay. And then I just need to make sure that I have it everywhere it needs to be. Okay. And we'll come into this last chapter, and this time I'm just going to use Control Paste. Okay. And we are all set. So our chapters are all going to stop spinning and going to automatically come back to a lat lon of 0, 0. Now that we have that, we need a button here that allows us to go back to the main menu. Okay. Because right now, you can spin, you could click on one of these, which I'm not going to do because I want to wait until we're ready to do that. Okay. But what we need here is we need an return to main menu button. So we're going to actually grab one of these buttons, and we're just going to paste a clone because I don't want to have to repick the blue or the purple and all of that. And we're going to change this to being called button. I do RTMM. That stands to return to main menu for me. And this was built in tutorial 3. So this is just going to say main menu. Okay. And now what I want to do is I'm going to make this button much smaller. And I am going to move it up here. Okay. So now, we don't want to do that. So I am going to take this button, this main menu button now. Okay. And we are going to program it to go to the main menu. So copy OSC, main menu, come down to GUI events, and we are going to paste in that. And now if we hit file save, if we click main menu, it brings us back to the main menu. It zooms the earth out, goes back to 0, and starts playing. If we click geolocated, it comes to 0, zooms in, and here we are. We could now spin around. And notice if we fly in and we see this, we still have a problem. Okay? The problem is that you can't exit the panel bubble, and there's no way to know that you could spin this around. Okay? And so what I'm going to do is just click the space bar because I know that that will pull us out of it. Okay? But nobody else knows that. Okay, and so we need to say what happens in this chapter when somebody flies into a panel bubble. All right, and what we want to happen is we want this background to show up. So we're going to paste a link. All right, and now our earth went away. And so what we need to do is we need to say that when this chapter loads, we want to hide that. So I'm going to right click on the eyeball that I would use to hide that. And I'm going to copy the OSC, hide that clip. And I'm going to come up to the chapter and I'm going to say when the chapter loads, I want you to hide that clip. Okay. So now if you visit that chapter and you go to geolocated panel bubbles, it's there, but it's hidden. Okay. Now, what I want to say is when we fly into a panel bubble, we want this text to hide, and we want the main menu button to hide, and we want the earth to hide. Okay? So what we're going to do is we are going to come to the main menu button, and we're going to get the script to hide it, and we'll say on enter a panel bubble, hide that. Plus, we want to hide this text, so we're going to grab that, copy the OSC, and come down here and hide that. And then we're going to copy this main menu button by duplicating it. And we're going to name this one. We are going to name exit panel. And we'll go to the text properties and change it to say exit panel. And what we want it to do is exit the panel. So in order to find out how to do that, we need to fly into one of these panels and then right click, because this is what we would choose to fly out. And here's the script, joystick exit. So I grab that script and I come back to this button here, okay, this exit panel, and I say on click, paste in joystick exit. So now if somebody clicks that, we exit that panel bubble. Okay. And it also took the main menu because I had that not hidden yet. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to hide that exit panel button when the chapter loads. So let's go to the chapter and let's say on load, hide that button. So now that button is hidden. So if somebody flies in to that chapter or to a panel, okay, now we have that, it's flown in, it's hidden everything it needs to hide, but it hasn't brought the things up that we need it to bring up. So let's talk about how we make that happen. So what we need to happen when you fly into the panel bubble, okay, is we need it to hide the return to main menu, which it's doing. It needs to hide the text, which it's doing, but it needs to show this panel button. So let's add that. So show the panel exit. We want it to show the background. So let's grab that script and show the background. And additionally, we are going to put in a GUI input. So we're going to right click load. It's going to be a GUI and it's going to just be a touchscreen graphic. And we're going to call this GUI underscore input spin. Spin. And there we go. So now we come to file. I happen to have a file for this, so I'm going to just navigate to it. All right. And then we're going to come down to GUI property. I'm sorry, GUI position rather. And we are going to turn on this background so we can see what we would look like inside of a panel bubble. Okay. And now I'm going to grab this and I'm just going to make it a little bit larger. And now people know that they can swipe to rotate the globe here. Okay. And how we do that is we say this GUI is an input. So use as an input window. We don't want a virtual image. And it's going to go to final pass camera 0, which is exactly what we want. Okay. And you'll see how that works in a minute. That allows us to spin. See? But if I spin over here now it doesn't work because this is where you have to spin. Okay. Which is actually going to cause some problems, which I'll show you in a minute. So we want this to hide when the chapter loads. So we're going to come here to when the chapter loads. And we want it to show when it enters a button or it enters the panel bubble. So we're going to say to show that. Okay. Now we would be inside a panel bubble. So when we exit a panel bubble, we want all of this to happen, but opposite, right? So I'm going to copy and paste it and I'm going to say show this. Show this and hide these three when we exit a panel bubble. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the main menu and we are going to save and we are going to click geolocated panel bubbles and here we are. As you can see, I can't click on them, which here is the problem. Okay. Once you've added an input into a chapter, you have to always use inputs. It's not just going to make the whole screen an input. So what we need to do here is we need to right click and load a new clip. It's going to be a GUI and we're just going to make it touchscreen text. Okay. Because ironically, we're going to make it completely transparent. So I'm going to come to this input and I'm going to call it GUI underscore input underscore panel select. Okay. And this is going to be for selecting the panorama, the panel bubbles. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the text properties. I'm going to delete the text because we don't need text. Okay. And I'm going to make the text box transparent. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to put a text there so I can make the background transparent. Here we go. So make that transparent. Now if I delete that text, I will get rid of those boxes. Okay, so now we have just this blank box that's right here. And I essentially want this to cover the earth. So I'm just going to make it so all of this becomes spinnable area. Okay, and I'm just going to come through and I'm going to say input, and I'm just going to say final pass camera. Okay, so now I can spin, see? And if I hover over one of these, it allows me to pick it. So I click on it. Now all of a sudden you can't see it here, which forces people to look at it on your monitor, and they can spin and look around like this. Okay, so I'm going to click exit panel, and these came. It's now a main menu button instead of the panels, and everything looks good. So we've got this chapter completed. So let's go ahead and click file and save so that we can save our material. And we're going to go back to the main menu, and we are going to go to the picture-in-picture chapter. Okay, all we have to do here is we don't want people to watch the picture-in-picture on the touch screen, so we're just going to paste a link of this background so it covers that screen. Okay, we're going to come to the top, and we are going to paste a link of our header. We're going to paste a clone of our subheader, because remember, we're going to change that. So we come in here and we're going to make it, instead of GeoPanos, this is going to be PIP subheader. All right. And the text is going to say picture in picture. Okay. And then we just need to, in this particular one, there's not much we could do, we could put text on the screen, but we're not going to do that for sake of time because we've already shown you how to put text on, right? We've done it with this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this return to main menu button, and I'm going to paste a link because it can be the exact same. Okay. Now, if we are in the panel or picture in picture, we can return to main menu. We can come to a geolocated, we can spin, we can choose to fly in, we can fly back out, we can return to main menu, we can visit picture in picture, we can go back to the main menu, and we're going to do the same thing for image sequence. So now that we are at image sequence, we are just going to paste a link of the background. We are going to paste a link of the header. We're going to paste a link of the main menu button, but we're going to paste a clone of the subheader. And again, we're going to come in and rename that clone to being called the image sequence subheader, and we're going to get rid of that one at the end. And we're just going to come down to text, and we are going to change this to image sequence of seabird migration, seabird tracks. Sorry. And there we go. Now we have our image sequence, and we do need, in this chapter, we also need this input spin because people should be able to spin this. So we're just going to grab that, and we're going to right click and paste a link because it can be the exact same one, and there we go. All right, and now we have it. We can return back to main menu, and that is how we build a GUI.